Hello, everybody. Welcome back to The Varied Life. I'm Steve here, the retired hobby tech guy who is an American expat in Korea. So, for those of you who don't know, the wife and I, we sold everything that we had in the United States: the house, the car, the truck, the guns, the ammo, the guns, the ammo, everything in the kitchen junk drawer. We threw stuff into a couple of suitcases, we traveled, and boom, we ended up here in Korea to where we have an F1 and F4 visa, and we have been happily retired. There are bumps that come with retiring in an overseas location, but since we spent a lot of time in Korea in the past, and the wife has family here, and we don't have anything holding us back in the United States, we were able to retire early because of the reduced expenses, and we've been loving it. So it doesn't matter if you retire in the United States or overseas, early retirement is definitely a thing. It is it is so worth it. I don't know anybody that said that they're glad that they waited to retire later in life. Matter of fact, every time I meet somebody who has retired and we get to talking, it ends up that it's like, yeah, if I had known retirement was like this, I would have done it earlier. So it is what it is. Well, I take that back. I lied. There's actually one person that wishes that they didn't retire and that they stayed working, but he seemed like a miserable person. So, yeah, you have to have something to do. And if you like working until you kick the bucket and that makes you happy, then by all means, keep working. So today, what we're going to end up doing is we're going to talk about being retired in Korea. We're going to talk a little bit about the doctor's strike, which has been going on, which seems like forever. Yeah, like 10,000 or 12,000 resident doctors have gone on strike, and they just quit doing residency. I don't know how they're paying their student loans or their bills. We're going to talk about Mickey Mouse and cultural appropriation. Oh no, and discounted car insurance registration here in Korea. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the doctor strike. So we're going to take a look at that. And for those of you who don't know, the doctor strike has been going on for quite some time. 70% of Koreans are stressed out by the prolonged conflict between doctors and the government. And yeah, it's interesting because the doctors are saying that they're overworked, that it's just too much. They often work 36-hour shifts. They see, 100 to 150 some odd patients a day. It's absolutely crazy. And the average time spent on a patient is 3 to 4 minutes. And I can absolutely confirm this because the hospital that I go to, even though it is not a teaching hospital with residents, the hospital, yeah, I timed my last mental health appointment and it was 3 minutes and 42 seconds in the door. So I timed it. As soon as I stepped in the door, I clicked and started timing it. And then when I exited, I clicked. And so it was 3 minutes and 42 seconds. Yeah, it's definitely an overworked system where it's an assembly line type of thing. And the more patients that you have, which now the regular hospitals are being over inundated with new patients and more patients, that the amount of time that doctors spend with patients is even less. But if you're in an area that has big teaching hospitals, and there's a number of them in Korea, the problem is you're not going to be able to get treated. And matter of fact, the Seoul Medical Center that is up in Seoul, or Samsung Medical Center, which is up in Seoul, is probably one of the top three big medical centers. And that's where I got eye surgery and some other stuff done. It ends up that now appointments are being pushed back 6 to 8 months because they don't have doctors. And they don't have doctors, they don't have appointments. Surgeries are being postponed. People are dying of cardiac events because they can't get admitted into hospitals because they don't have doctors. So, kind of a rundown on that. The Korean government advised and said, hey, we want to up the number of doctors because we have an aging population, which is Korea is now becoming a super age population with a low birth rate. But as you get older, you need more medical appointments, you need more doctors. My wife and I can attest to this, and we're in good health. And we have noticed that we need more appointments. more medications, and so on and so forth. And as you get older, and if you're not in shape like we are, it can get progressively worse. The Korean medical system has not added any new doctors for 27 years. But the workload has increased. It has been overburdened to the point of where doctors are just really stressing out. Some doctors are quitting, and if it's a matter of pay, I understand. But most of these people work for a for-profit hospital, so you should be striking against the hospital, not against the government that wants to have 2,000 extra doctors. Yeah, it's not like they're saying we need 20,000 doctors. They're saying that, we want 2,000 more doctors, and some of them to go into rural areas and smaller cities. Yeah, this has been going on for a while. They did the survey, and 70% of the people said they were stressed out. 69% said the current dispute could have been avoided. When asked about the cause of current conflict, 61.9% said it was because the government failed to come up with a feasible solution to gain the trust of those involved before announcing its reform plans. Some 54% said the situation would not be resolved naturally in the current state, while 38% called for a completely different solution, and 35.4% said a revised government plan is needed. As an outsider looking in, I don't really get this. The government failed to come up with a feasible solution to gain trust of those involved before announcing its reform plans. It's not like they came out of the blue and said, oh, we're just going to add 2,000 more doctors. No, they have been talking about it, and so I'm not sure how. It just seems odd. And the fact that these reform plans, it's not like revamping the entire medical system. You're adding 2,000 more doctors. You're putting and going to open up 2,000 more medical slots for medical schools, and I think there's like 42 medical schools here in Korea, 20 or 42, I can't remember exactly. But even though, when you get to the hospitals, the number of teaching hospitals that are around, you're looking at maybe one extra doctor per department. And since all of the departments are being overburdened with tons of work, wouldn't a department that's being overburdened from work wouldn't they benefit from one extra doctor or maybe two? Yeah, they would, because they would be able to alleviate some of the overburden that has been placed on the other doctors. But the doctors union says, hey, we can't have any more doctors because that would take away from the prestige of being a doctor. Yeah, the doctors union representative actually said that it's about prestige. They weren't worried so much about pay, but the prestige, because it's like there's a limited amount of prestige, and if you add more doctors, that will spread out the prestige and it'll lower it, and that we can't have that. The other thing that the doctors union ended up saying was well, if we do this, if we add 2,000 more doctors for our super aging population and our overburdened current medical doctors in the medical facilities, it'll totally destroy the medical system that we have. And it's like, and I'm surprised because on all of the Korean news shows, all the interviewers that talk with the doctors union representatives, not one of them asks and says, well, how would it destroy? Because adding 2,000 more doctors, they're not talking about lowering the scores or having lower standards to get more doctors in. It's still the exact same. So the doctors that you have doctors in hospitals today, and you add 2,000 more, they would still go through the exact same requirements, training, certification, board certifications, everything. Same residency, nothing would be lowered. Nothing would be changed other than having 2,000 more doctors. The government went through this rigmarole, and the doctors union said, no, we're going on strike. And so the residents have struck, and that has pushed appointments back 6 to 8 months easily. People have died, haven't gotten surgeries that they needed. Chemo treatments have been interrupted, and it's just kind of a thing now. It is very odd because it seems like it's a political thing, and it's not about the people or the Hippocratic Oath. So we got that going on. When 54% say the situation would not be resolved naturally in the current state, well, obviously we can't do that because the current state, the president of Korea, is under arrest for impeachment because he called martial law, which was kind of a stupid thing to do, in my opinion. But they're going through the impeachment process, so there's bigger fish to fry than the doctor's strike. It's no big deal. It's very, very weird. 38% call for a completely different solution, and 35% said revised government plan is needed. I don't really understand what is a different solution, because the doctors union ended up saying, it'll destroy the medical system that we have, and I don't understand why. You're overburdened and you can't see enough people, so people often have to travel to different hospitals to get care, and if you have more doctors, you would be able to provide that care for people at your hospital. What's the different solution? I'm not really getting this. What in the revised plan? Well, actually, the government did a revised plan. Said now they dropped it from 2,000 to 1,500, which is again less than. Yeah, it wouldn't even be one extra doctor per department. It would be less than that in the teaching hospital. So yeah, the interesting thing is that the Korean Doctors Union, the medical association, has come up with zero plans. So in the midst of all the overburden of work and all, pay, blah, 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 whatever, when no one asked to say, well, what is your solution to deal with the overburden of work? When you see 120 patients a day and you can only spend 1, 2, 3 minutes at a time, and it's just kind of like herding cattle and just putting them through, you can miss a lot of things, which degrades the amount of quality of care that you get in a hospital. Just saying. Before the doctor strike, Korea was kind of high on, it had kind of peaked in the quality of care that they could give because of the overburden of work. And now with the doctors on strike, which is anywhere from 9, 10, or 12,000, depending on the articles that you read, it is now like number 3 at the bottom. So you have the bottom, you have like Turkey and some other country, and then Korea. It has gone to third world level medical care coverage for their citizens. So they went from being way up here to way down here, and nobody really seems to care. The doctors union, and by the way, you should know that the doctors union, every time the government wants to increase the number of doctors, they go on strike, the government always folds, and in 27 years they have not added one new doctor. But yet they complain. And adding new doctors will destroy the medical system. It's absolutely crazy. Over half the respondents said the government is not effectively communicating with the public on policy and the conflict of medical service. 75% said the public and patients are likely to be left out amid the ongoing standoff, which is absolutely true. Many Koreans felt they are powerless in the standoff as it will soon enter its 12th month. Crazy. And like I said, these are resident doctors that have to pay for medical school. How are they paying for their student loans? How are they surviving? And they quit their residency, so they're going to have to go back, if they ever come back, and do their residency again. I don't understand how the doctors union convinced these resident doctors to quit and basically throw away all the years that they went to school. You're talking college, you're talking pre-med, medical school, then you go into a hospital and you're doing residency. Maybe you're 1 or 2 years into your residency, and then the strike comes out. So, you're talking almost 10 years, 8 to 10 years of your life, and then just throw it away by saying, oh, we're going to go on strike because we don't want more doctors, even though I'm being severely overworked. It makes absolutely no sense. Many Koreans felt powerless. The standoff will soon enter its 12th month. And patients do not have any power in helping to resolve the ongoing conflict. Yeah, it is. It's true. People are the ones that are taking the brunt of this. And like I said, thankfully, we don't have any serious medical problems. But we have noticed that in the things that we have wanted to get done, we have had to search for different hospitals, because like Samsung Medical Center says, no, everything's backed up 6 to 8 months for certain procedures. So, and the same thing as we're hearing in other hospitals in Korea as well. While having issues with the government's approach, the survey showed the majority of respondents generally agreed there's a problem in medical circles that needs to be addressed. You think? 57% said the country did not have enough doctors, while 26.9% said it does have sufficient number of medical staff. The problem is when you compare the number of medical staff or the doctor to patient ratio, Korea is falling really, really low on the totem pole. And that means you don't have enough doctors, you don't have enough time, the overburden of work, you're going to get sub-quality care as what we have seen in the past. Only 6.5% of the country had more than enough doctors, while the rest didn't comment on the issue. How you can say it must be people, those 6.5%, must be the people that don't get sick and think that, well, I don't know why. I don't need doctors. I mean, I'm doing absolutely fine. It seems like there's some confirmational bias there. About 87% agreed that the imbalance of medical staff between regions, metropolitan areas, having far more doctors in rural areas was a serious problem, which was interesting because the Korean government said out of those 2,000 extra doctors, they're going to make them available and put them in more rural areas. Yeah. Yeah, it's just crazy. Here's some other stuff. On the medical reform plans themselves, 61% said they agree with the government to increase the number of medical staff. 63% concurred that a fair compensation plan for doctors, which involves giving incentives for those committed to essential health care like emergency room and pediatrics. They are so lacking in pediatrics and emergency care here in Korea, it's not even funny. That there are emergency rooms that are closed 1 or 2 days a week. So you have to go to another hospital. Matter of fact, there was a story that I talked about where somebody had a heart attack. It's either a heart attack or stroke. I think it was a heart attack. And they ended up going to 7 different hospitals. And they got turned away because they didn't have the doctors to do the work, and the person eventually died. Yeah, it's definitely a problem when you go to 7 hospitals. So, you have a heart attack. Oh, you drive to one hospital, you go in. We can't see you. You get back in your car and you drive somewhere else. More and more. Until eventually, 7 didn't work out. Excuse me. It ends up fair compensation plan for doctors, which is really interesting because the majority of hospitals in Korea are for-profit hospitals. So if you're complaining about your pay, you should be striking against the hospital, the people who own the hospitals. But the hospitals don't say a thing. Even though they are losing money, serious amounts of money, millions and millions of dollars, the private profit hospitals you don't hear nothing about them in the news. It is next to zero on what they're saying. They would, if you come work for me, and you're complaining about the government wanting to put more people because you're complaining about being overworked, and yet I'm paying you, and then you go on strike, I'm probably going to fire you and hire somebody else that will. The problem is it's such a political interwoven web that they've woven with the Korean Medical Association and the for-profit hospitals that it is just absolutely insane. I just don't understand it. It is, but you can get good medical care in Korea. But just like anywhere else, you can get okay care. You can get care where it's like, I'm never going back to that place again. But generally, I've had better care in Korea than I have in the United States. But the problem is now, at least with the resident teaching hospitals, appointments are being pushed back 6 to 8 months. Yeah, it's not a real good look for Korea. If you're going to increase the compensation plan for doctors, then you should be talking to the for-profit hospitals. They should be striking against the actual hospital, not against the government that wants to add, 1,500 doctors. 69% said they agree with the plan to provide a safety net for medical malpractice, which includes reducing doctors' financial burden for related lawsuits. That's kind of an interesting thing. 76% said they approve of plans to reinforce medical services in rural regions. This is still going on, and it's absolutely crazy on this doctor strike because, like I said, you got about 10,000 resident doctors that haven't been working for a year, haven't finished their residency. So in other words, if you haven't finished your residency and you have an absence of an extended period of time, that means you have to restart your residency over here in Korea. And that includes certifications, that includes board certifications, and so on and so forth. That's going to add more time. And I don't know how these resident doctors are surviving. There were some articles in the past talking about the Korean doctors and how it ends up that they were trying to get side jobs and delivery and this and that, and people were not hiring them because you quit being a doctor and you put people's lives at risk and you went against the Hippocratic Oath. Okay, so yeah, absolutely crazy that this is still going on. And the Korean people, the normal, hardworking, everyday people of Korea, the great people of Korea, they're paying for it. It's having a toll on them and people like us who are retired and living in Korea. So anyway, it's still going on. Maybe someday it will leave, but the doctor strike is still going on. And with the current situation, with the president being impeached and the other problems that we have politically here in Korea, I don't see that this is going to be taken care of anytime soon. So take your vitamins, exercise, and yeah, take care of yourself. The next thing we're going to take a look at is this right here. Mickey and Minnie Mouse in Hanbok set off a comment war. Yeah, absolutely crazy. There it is. Look at that. The Lunar New Year, the Year of the Snake. It's coming up. And there's Minnie and Mickey Mouse, and they're dressed in the traditional Korean Hanbok. And we see Korean right there. We see Chinese right there. And it ends up videos of filmed at Disneyland in California show them dressed in hanbok, the Korean traditional attire, and two characters visiting people. And yeah, Chinese New Year, but red lanterns, red dragons, the whole 9 yards, Year of the Snake. And even though it ends up that the Lunar New Year is celebrated in the majority of Asian countries around the world, it is normally the Chinese New Year. But other countries, if you live in Korea, it's not a Chinese New Year, it's just the Lunar New Year. If you live in Singapore, it's the Lunar New Year. It's, it's not really, I haven't heard any Korean say it's Chinese New Year. When videos posted of the amusement park on their Instagram account, Koreans were thrilled to see the characters dressed in the hanbok. But by Thursday afternoon, the post had received 951 comments, some of which criticized Disneyland for cultural appropriation. Oh my gosh, cultural appropriation. These are, I'm imagining Kens and Karens, basically white people that are saying, oh, that's cultural appropriation of this and that, and oh, it's a horror, it's a travesty that Disneyland would try to profit off of the culture of Korea, or any country for that matter. But I wanted to kind of give you a little heads up, and we're going to take a look at this, that, boom, you can go to Korea, and you can go visit, like, the different palaces in Korea, and you could rent a hanbok. Yeah, it's immerse yourself in the Korean culture by wearing Korea's traditional costume, the hanbok. Take adventure to the most beautiful areas in Korea, wear the unique traditional Korean custom, and take the best photos of your Korea trip. They have hairstyling and accessories for your hanbok. Go around famous monuments like Gyeongbok Palace, Cheondokgung Palace, or Cheonju Hanok Village in your hanbok, and a bunch of other places. So it's kind of interesting because, yeah, you can rent a hanbok and go around to these places. And actually, some places, if you rent a hanbok, they will allow you free access into that palace, and so it doesn't cost anything. Yeah, so they have a number of palaces and stuff, and you can go rent and wear these things. And, there's the prices, basically traditional hanbok, a couple hours, 4 hours, it's $14. Yeah, it's kind of cool. Themed hanbok, you can, 14 for 4 hours, $28. And you get the top and the bottom, the handbook for hairstyling, a free storage locker for all of your things. And yeah, it's just kind of a thing. And you can go to these different places. And yeah, it's you will go to like Gyeongbok Palace in Seoul, and you'll see a number of foreigners of all nationalities and races wearing the hanbok, going around and taking pictures and having fun. And I haven't run into any Koreans outside of Korea or inside Korea, especially inside Korea, that think it is cultural appropriation. Yeah, it's matter of fact that guy looks kind of familiar. Wonder who that handsome gent is. I'm not sure. And that wonderful woman there. That, in case you don't know, that's me and my wife. And when we had rented our hanbok, and I think this was October 21st, 2022. And yeah, it was a while ago. But yeah, it was as popular back then. And it's even more popular now to rent hanboks and things like that. So yeah, it's just absolutely crazy that people are calling, the Mickey and Minnie Mouse of, wearing the hanbok at Disneyland and that being cultural appropriation. People are like, "Oh, it's cultural appropriation. That's mad." It's kind of like you've seen the video where a guy went around and he asked the Mexican people. He said, if there was somebody that came down there and was wearing a sombrero and a serape and whatever, would that offend them? And they're like, no, or talking to Irish people, if they wear a leprechaun and, wear green and drink beer or whatever, no, it's fine, absolutely fine. It's amazing how the most people that complain about cultural appropriation are white people, and they know nothing about the culture. They're speaking on behalf of Korea, saying this is cultural appropriation and it's bad, but they've never been to Korea, or Koreans are like, what are you talking about? We want to share our culture, and you can wear it, and it's no big deal because it highlights the wonderfulness of Korea. The dress, the culture, the food, the kimchi, the this, the that, the LA galbi, all of the wonderful food and things that Korea has to offer. I just don't get it. It's just kind of crazy because it's almost like when I remember there were some people, and I'm near a military base where military members are stationed and their family members. And I remember seeing a number of times people come from the United States, generally they're white for the most part, and they're like, oh, you should tip your Korean servers. Tipping is not really a thing here in Korea, one, because of the Korean law, and if you do tip, you have to report that, so they don't really do that. Closer around the military installations, yeah, you have burger places in this, and they'll have a tip jar, even though they're probably not supposed to. But yeah, the servers get paid a wage, not like we do in the United States. And so you'll have some American family members or Americans who are in the service, or family members of service members, that will rant and rave about cultural appropriation, or they'll rant and rave, oh, you need to tip and we need to change this and that. And it's like, I have family members, not my family, but the wife's family, that have run restaurants, and they pay their servers a good wage, so they don't need tips. And matter of fact, if you tip, it's considered rude, because that gives an air of an hierarchy of, I'm better than you, so I'm giving you money because you did such a good job and I'm such a wealthy person. That's why they don't have that in Korea, because it's, I am a human being, you are a human being, it is my job, and I'm going to give you the best service regardless, because I'm getting paid for a job that I'm doing. And the people that get the service, they appreciate that and they pay, and everybody's respectful. So it's kind of funny when I see people talking about, oh, you need to tip in Korea and we need to change this. First of all, they don't even know that in Korea they don't work for tips like they do in the United States. And in the United States, people that work for tips get a tip and a wage from the restaurant that they're working at. And if they don't meet a certain amount of tip income, then the restaurant by law is required to increase their pay to at least hit like a minimum wage level. So, but most people don't even know that. And unfortunately, a lot of servers in the United States don't even know that as well. So a lot of restaurants and fast food companies that operate in the United States don't follow the laws and don't educate their employees. And they, you've seen the posts of, oh, server only got, like $2.80 for working a week. Yeah, they need to take that up with the labor authorities, because that's illegal. And there's actually, I forget the name of it, but it's like a wage tip payment. And if they don't, if you only get, X amount of tips and it falls below a certain number, the restaurant is supposed to pay you. But yeah, maybe we should just pay people what they should be paid, and like the other countries that don't rely on tipping to get lower price labor. Well, but even here in Korea, the danger of that is when you increase the tips and you expect tips, people, especially during inflation and bad economic times, are not going to be able to tip, and employers are going to be like, I'm going to buy a robot. So you will often see robots in Korean restaurants that you do your order from a kiosk, and then a robot, boom, comes up to your table, and there's your drinks, your food, and then the robot goes and leaves. I'll try to get some video of that one of these days. But yeah, we're seeing more and more kiosks, we're seeing more and more robots, and that is slowly coming into the world in America. We've seen fast food restaurants where it's all kiosk, which the majority of fast food restaurants here in Korea are all kiosks. You might have a teller to deal with cash with some older people, but the majority of people just deal with a kiosk. So you don't have any interaction. And if they have a robot, then you really don't have any interaction. The food is brought to you, it's hot, it's good, it's wonderful as you're wearing your Korean hanbok and enjoying your tour in Seoul and whatever. It's not about cultural appropriation at all. So anyway, we got that going on. The last thing we're going to talk about is discounted car registration. This is something that just recently started here in Korea, and since we've been here a couple of years, normally with car registration, they will send you 2 notices, and you will pay 6 months of the registration and then 6 months to equal 1 year. Well, what they started doing is saying, hey, well, if you pay your car registration at one time, you can get a 5% discount off of your registration. So that's what we ended up doing. So if you have retired here in Korea, you're on an F4, F1 visa, or whatever visa that you have, and you have purchased a car, and it gets time to do the insurance, or not the insurance, but the registration, make sure you read or have it translated, because you can opt to pay your car registration for the whole year and get a 5% discount. So yeah, check into that, because yeah, it's 5%, and that's a good amount. It's always good to save some money. So that's what we got going on. Some interesting things here in Korea. The doctor strike is still going. The presidential impeachment thing is going, and now that's all kind of crazy. But some people have asked me and said, well, how is the impeachment? How's that affecting your life? It's not, honestly. With that and some other things going on in the world, the exchange rate has gone up, which is better for us, because with US dollars, we get more Korean won. So when we buy things, we get it at a cheaper price compared to Koreans who get paid in Korean won. So for Koreans, it's not really good, but for people with US dollars, it's good. But aside from, the doctor strike and things like that, which, knock on wood, hopefully we won't have any medical problems. Everything's fine with us. We pay about half of what we paid in the United States in Southern Colorado in regards to expenses, and I've done videos talking about that. So yeah, retired life over here is good. We're enjoying it, doing some hobbies, painting, 3D printing, all kinds of cool stuff, and just kind of living our lives, going to the gym, working out, and staying healthy. Our daughter is now stationed close to where we live, so that's kind of cool. We get to see her. And just doing another video to kind of keep people informed on what's going on in Korea. So especially if that car insurance, you can get that 5% discount if you pay for the entire year with your car registration. So be sure to check into that. If you're one of us, save some money and do that. So with that being said, please subscribe to the Varied Life channel on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're watching it on Facebook, then go to YouTube and find the Varied Life and like and subscribe to appease the YouTube gods. And if you really appreciate the video or anything that I end up doing, you can also buy me a coffee. In the description box, there is a link. And matter of fact, we have people here that have bought me coffee, and they're awesome people. I have much respect for them. And again, like and subscribe. I would really appreciate that. Another thing I want to offer before I leave is that you'll see down here, right down here, not on me, but on that little thing. It says official theverylife@gmail.com. If you have any questions, send me an email and I will answer your questions, share the information that I have. I don't sell anything. I just share our experiences of being retired here in Korea and try to help people out. Thankfully, I have answered every single email that people have sent me, even some of the crazy people. I always answer back and to share the information. But I've got a lot of videos on YouTube on my channel, The Buried Life, that talk about our becoming expats here in Korea and, buying an apartment, our car, banking, trading in our driver's license for a Korean driver's license. We share all that information and more, so you can find that on the channel. So anyway, do you think the Minnie and Mickey Mouse is wearing hanbok is a cultural appropriation and that's a bad thing? Put it in the comment section down below. I'd like to read that. So anyway, that's what we got going on. That'll be it, and we will see you on the next video. Peace. Cultural appropriation.